welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different that I've never done before. I'm going to be doing a reading vlog where I read some of my favorite authors' backlists, so some books previously written by authors that I love. So I have a few authors that I chose, ones that I have been wanting to read some of the books on their backlists. I thought about doing like a video where I read their entire backlist, like pick one author and do the entire backlist, but a lot of these authors have written several books, and so I didn't want this video to be too long. And that would be something maybe I do in the future, but right now I'm just going to focus on one book from each author, so something previously published by these authors, and these are all authors that I have obviously read from before and really liked, so we'll see. I'm curious to see like if it holds, if these authors and their writing hold up, if I enjoy these books that they had previously written. Some of these are books or are authors that I've only read one book from, so I'm excited to see if my love for them holds out and what I think. So this video is actually serving two purposes for me. One, obviously, like I said, I wanted to read some of the backlist of these authors, but also it is helping me to read physical books from my shelves, which is one of my big goals for this year. So I have 4 different authors, 4 different books. 2 of these are going to be physical books from my shelves. 2 of them are ebooks. So the first author is Karin Slaughter. I have read 3, actually more. I think I read like 3 standalone books from Karin Slaughter, and then I've read most of the Will Trent series. So the book that I've chosen for her is going to be Girl Forgotten. This one I don't think is very old. I think this came out in, or not, I think I see here that you can see it's a book of the month edition. So they have the month back here. This was August of 2022, so not too long ago. But this was, again, the only physical copy of a Karin Slaughter book that I have. So I went ahead and chose this one. I'm not sure what it's about, but I know Karin Slaughter's books are always a wild time. I've loved all the books that I've read by her. I do really like the Will Trent series. I need to finish that as well. Yeah, I'm excited to get into this one and see what craziness Karin Slaughter has in store. Then the next book that I'm picking, again, is another physical. This one is by Fredrick Backman. This is going to be Anxious People. So I have read Beartown by Fredrick Backman. I started the second book in that series. I don't remember what it's called, but that's one series that I do want to finish. I may end up doing a vlog. That may be a vlog I end up doing, reading the whole Beartown series. The first book is still the book like that just immediately comes to mind that has made me like just so angry, and like one of the few books I can think of where I've had to like put the book down and just like physically walk away from it because it upset me so much, which I don't think is a bad thing. I like that in books. I want to be made to feel something, whether that's anger or sadness or revulsion, fear, whatever it is. I like books that make me feel something. So the fact that that book made me so mad is actually a good thing in my opinion. So I'm excited to see what Fredrick Backman does in this one. I haven't heard very much about this book. This was back in 2020, so as we all know, the world was kind of thrown off its axis at this point, but that's probably maybe why I haven't heard very much about it. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into more of his books. We recently saw the movie A Man Called Otto, which is based on a Fredrick Backman book, so I do want to read that one as well. But the movie was really good, and so yeah, this one has been sitting on my shelves, and I decided to pick this one up. Then the last 2 I have are ebooks, like I said, so I'll put the covers over here. The first one is going to be The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I talked about this one in my last video in my most anticipated reads of 2023. This is within the same world as the Folk of the Air series, the first book being The Cruel Prince. The Cruel Prince is another book that I had a really hard time getting through. Things with like bullying and like just like kids being mean to each other and things like that are really triggering for me, and so that book was very hard for me to get through. I had to kind of skim some of the parts in the co-prints, but again, I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. I kind of like that. So I really do like these characters. Oak was one of my favorite characters in that series, so I'm looking forward to diving into the Stolen Heir and seeing, you know, what goes on with him. So yeah, that is the next one. Then the last book is going to be by Sophie Lark, and that is The Brutal Prince. This is a like dark mafia romance. I have read a few books by Sophie Lark now, and have really enjoyed them. I'm actually currently reading Anastasia by Sophie Lark, which is totally different from her other books. I'm still reading that one, but I'm like, it's a pretty long book. I was going to originally just kind of cheat a little bit and include that one in here, but that's actually her newest book, and it's really long, so I don't want this video to be too long. So I chose The Brutal Prince. It seems like it's a quick read. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so I was able to get it fairly easily, and I do like mafia, like dark romances, so I'm excited to get into that one. So the first book, I think I'm going to do 2 books at a time. I think I'm going to do the Sophie Lark book first, because it is on Kindle Unlimited. Like I said, it was pretty easy to access, and it's only like 300 pages long, so I think I can get through it pretty quickly. And then I'm also going to do Girl Forgotten at the same time. Karin Slaughter books have a tendency to like pull me right in, hold my attention, and I always get like to the point where I don't want to stop reading them, and I always get through them fairly quickly. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, as well as The Brutal Prince, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I will check back in when I'm a little bit further into both of these books, when I have a little bit more information about what they're about, the synopsis, all that, and more of feeling an update on them, and I'll check back in then. And so it is a few days later from when I filmed that intro to this video. By now you've seen a couple of clips of me reading. So I am just about done with The Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I'm like 98% into it. I think I only have a few more pages left. So I'll definitely be finishing that here this morning. It was good. Not anything like spectacular, out of this world. It was your typical like dark fantasy mafia romance. You know, the arranged marriage trope, like hate to love. I wouldn't say enemies to lovers, but maybe like hate to love. Did I say arranged marriage? I think arranged marriage, I think I said that. Hate to love, like the typical, you know, she gets kidnapped and he has to save her. in this book, they've actually both gotten like kidnapped twice, and you know, he saves her, she saves him. Typical, you know, like the jealous ex-boyfriend shows up and kidnaps her, and he has to save her. You know, all the usual things you get in these like mafia romances. I do like the characters; they're pretty funny. She's more, she's very like hot-tempered, and she doesn't take any shit from him. He wants her to be the, you know, the obedient little trophy wife, and that's not her. You know, their arranged marriage brought the two families together, yada yada. So basically kind of the same thing you get in any of these books. Like I said, nothing too crazy, nothing out of this world. Some smut, but nothing hugely, you know, different. Yeah, it was good. It'll probably be a solid 3 stars. I don't think there's anything really, there's nothing like to not like about it, but there's nothing wow enough about it to put it into a 4-star category. So yeah, I will be finishing that up here. I think what makes the Sophie Lark's other series, I think it's the Sinner's Duet. I think it's like There Are No Saints, and then I forget what the second book is called. I read There Are No Saints last year, and I think I like that one better. That one I believe I gave 4 stars. The difference with that one was the fact that it's from the perspective, one, it's from the man's perspective. This was also dual POV, but that one is mostly from the male main character's perspective. And if you don't know that, I don't want to give much away, but that series is about like 2 competing serial killers. And then the dark romance part of it is like just kind of like a side element, but it's really about these 2 serial killers. So that I really thought was different than any other dark romance that I read, so that kind of put it up a notch. But this one, like I said, is pretty mainstream. So yeah, solid 3 stars. Not terrible, not bad, but not anything like out of this world either. So that's done. I'm gonna start I can't remember the name of the Karin Slaughter book I was going to read now. I'm going to start that today, though. And then now on the way home, on my drive home, I'm going to start The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. That I have over audiobook, so I can listen to that while I drive home. And I will update you guys on that when I get there. So it is Tuesday now. It is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. So I did go ahead and start Girl Forgotten by Karin Slaughter. I am about almost like on page 89. So just about 90 pages in. So far it's good. It's definitely different from what I expected. I don't really know what I expected because I didn't know anything about it going in, but this feels almost like a combination of like the Will Trent series and then Karin Slaughter's other standalone books. Like it's kind of melding the two. So this has a few different things going on. So there's dual timelines. So there's partly one timeline is of this girl who, so at the beginning of the story, you're in the POV of this girl, Emily, who she is 16 or 17 in the 1970s, I believe. 1980s. 1982 is when the book starts. And she is pregnant, and she has been like, I guess disowned, kind of. I don't know if that's the right word, but by like all of her friends. None of them want anything to do with her. She's seen as like the slutty girl of the school. She lives in a very small town, so everyone knows. Her parents are very upset with her and negligent with her and abusive to her. And her mom is actually a high profile federal judge, or is about to become a federal judge. I think she's already a federal judge. So, you know, it's the type of thing where the mom is all loving and nice and, you know, Susie homemaker to the camera, but then behind the scenes, she's actually pretty negligent, and her husband is abusive. They also have, the mom's grandmother lives with them, and she is suffering from dementia, and so doesn't remember very much. I'm not sure how that's going to play into the story, but they made, Karin Slaughter made a point of making that like the focus of when the book started. So I'm assuming that that's going to come back into play somehow. So in that first POV, or that first timeline, Emily's pregnant. She's been like ostracized by this whole town, and it kind of alludes to who the father might be, somebody within this friend group of hers. And then that first like part ends with her actually being attacked, and then and you don't know what happens, like if she was killed. It's kind of left to make you think that she was killed. But then in the second timeline, which is like present day, this is where it kind of feels more like a Will Trent book. It's from the POV of a female like U.S. Marshal, and this is now 40 years later, and she has been assigned to like she calls it, babysit that federal judge, the mom, Emily's mom, because she's now receiving death threats. And in that POV, you then find out what happened to Emily. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but you then find out what happened to Emily, and like all the things that have happened in the 40 years since. And then this timeline has like cult things in it. This POV is like about a cult, and Andrea trying to discover more about this cult. She's also now trying to discover who attacked Emily and what happened 40 years ago in this town. And it seems like it's going to be like a cover-up type thing, like the whole town kind of knew, or either knew what happened to her and covered it up, or didn't really care and the police didn't really look into it. And just about how like the lives of these two women have, like, you know, how they converge and how they relate to each other. And yeah, you can definitely tell it's a Karin Slaughter book, though. It's been pretty, I wouldn't say gory, but I don't know. I feel like Karin Slaughter books always have this like tone to them, and she's not afraid to be gory. She doesn't hold anything back. There's never like violence and then like fade to black. It's always like on page violence. And in one of, I forget which Will Trent book it is, that is about Faith's mom. Faith is the female, is Will's partner in the Will Trent books. I forget which book it is, but it's about her mom, and it's about like how women in the police force, especially back in like the 60s and 70s, I think, were treated, and you know, the misogyny and like blatant sexual assault within like police departments for women officers and all that. And a lot of that has translated into this book, so I think you can just tell that it's written by Karin Slaughter. So yeah, so far I'm really liking it. Like I said, I'm only like 90 pages in, so I'm really curious to see what else happens. Not sure how many, see how many pages there are in here. So it looks like it's just shy of 400 pages. It's 390 pages. So I'm excited to see what else happens and where this goes. I'm not sure where this is going to lead or how the two storylines are really going to come together. But yeah, so far I'm liking it. And I haven't started Anxious People yet by Fredrick Backman. That's going to be the last book of the 4 books that I wanted to read for this vlog. I did start The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I've been listening to the audiobook of that. There's like 11 parts to the audiobook, and I'm on part like 3, I think. So I'm not even 50% of the way in yet. But the thing about that one is that I don't remember as much of what happened in the Folk of the Air series as I thought I did, especially the last one. I can't remember what the name of the last one was, but they're referencing things that happened in that last book, and some of the things I don't remember. Like, I recognize the names of the characters and vaguely remember, but I think I know you definitely have to have read those ones to fully understand what's happening in the Soul and Air. But I am liking it. Like I said, I've always loved Oak's character, so I'm enjoying getting to see like not his side of things, but like his progression in his life now after like that series. So yeah, it's going good so far. I don't have any huge opinions on it so far because, like I said, it's just now starting. Or I'm just now only, like 30% in, maybe 20% in. So yeah, I'll update on that one when I have more to say and more thoughts on it. But yeah, that is how things are going so far. Welcome back. So it is Wednesday the 15th now. I have been reading Girl Forgotten. I'm 100 pages in now, so I thought I would do an update. So far I'm liking it. I have some suspicions. I think that, so in the timeline with the U.S. Marshal Andrea, she just got to the town where the judge lives, and she met her new partner, and I feel like there's more going on with this partner than is being led on. He already knew people in the town, and it seems like he knows them pretty well, and he just has more information than I feel like he should. So I think I have a sneaking suspicion about him. I think he's somehow involved, or he knows something that he's not telling Andrea. I don't know if this is going to be like a cover-up thing where kind of everybody knows what happened to Emily back in 1982 and covered it up. And the marshals are there more to cover things up than to actually protect the judge. I like that it's going back and forth between the 1982 timeline for Emily, showing, so now it's 6 months before, like where the book started, talking about basically how she got pregnant and everything. And then, the current timeline. Yeah, I think a lot of the people around Andrea know more than what they're letting on. She also, in the current timeline, Andrea ran into one of Emily's old high school friends, one of the girls or the only other girl, I guess, that was in their little, clique. And she ended up marrying one of the other guys in the group, and I think she probably had something to do with Emily's disappearance, or she knew at least. So the whole thing is that they think that it's so hard to do this without giving too much away. So in Emily's timeline in 1982, her group of friends, I think they're the beginning of the cult that is then talked about later on in the book. I think they are how the cult started, and then the main male character continued to grow the cult after Emily died. But yeah, that is basically it. Those are my thoughts for now. I'm hoping that Andrea, so far she seems pretty with it, and she kind of suspects that her partner knows more than he's letting on, but she's not fully suspicious yet, so hopefully they don't like completely play her. But yeah, those are my thoughts for now. I will check back in later.
All lost things, says Oak. Maybe even see into the future. But we wish to know about the past. Queen Annette smiles in a way that makes me worried. I do not seek to anger the High Court by misplacing their prince. I could give you a marking to write on your shoes that would lead you straight through the swamp. Oak opens his mouth, looking ready to thank her and be off on our way. And yet, Queen Annette says, let us consider...
Welcome back. So today is Thursday, February 23rd, I think. It's several days later. I am still reading Girl Forgotten. I am, let's see how far into this I am. I'm just like almost exactly 100 pages into, I think. That's where I was last time I updated. So I have not picked this up. I ended up straining my back last weekend. And so I've just been taking this week really slow, not really doing much. And I've just not felt like picking up the camera and really haven't felt like reading. But I'm trying to start going again today, be more productive, getting some reading done. So I am going to be focusing on this. I also have Anxious People over here, which is the 4th book for this Backlist author's video that I'm going to be reading. I'm going to try to get further into this one before I start Anxious People, though. So yeah, I have... So, I wish that I hadn't had the phone in time lapse for that part that I just read. I don't know how well it caught my reaction to it, but the last 10 pages of Girl Forgotten was super hard to read and so just infuriating, and just crazy to think that this is actually how women were treated back then, probably still treated today. So I think I mentioned previously in the vlog that this is about a girl who, it's dual timelined. The older timeline is from, I think, the 70s, but a girl who lives in a very small town. Her mom is a federal judge, I believe, and her dad is some country club going rich dude. I don't remember what he does, but the mom is never home, never present. The dad is physically abusive, and she ends up pregnant, and she was raped. She took her friends gave her acid, I think it was, and apparently raped her while she was I don't know if she was unconscious, but while she was high, and obviously couldn't consent, and she ends up pregnant. And at first she didn't know that this had happened to her. But then she ends up pregnant, and obviously she knows something happened because she has never like willingly had sex. She thought that she was still a virgin. And so in this chapter, she's realized that she's missed her period, she's been throwing up, she's been sick, and she finally realizes what must have happened, but she still doesn't believe it because she knows that she's a virgin. And so she goes to the OB in town, to the doctor in town, and this was so hard to read. It was like, so I'm gonna read some of this. So she says, Dr. Schroeder smelled of cigarettes and Old Spice. He was normally gruff, but now he looked irked. And then the nurse that's in the office with her, because thankfully they at least had a nurse in the room back then, like they do now, is the mother of one of her schoolmates, so she assumes that this lady's gonna go tell everybody that she's pregnant. So the doctor comes in and is asking her why she's there, because she had shown up at the doctor's office like first thing in the morning before they even open, and he just immediately is like pulling her off and being rude to her, and he's saying, "You're delaying the patients who bothered to schedule actual appointments this morning." She doesn't know what to say because, again, she doesn't think that she can be pregnant because she has never had sex. And so she's kind of stuttering, saying, I think I've been throwing up, not much. I mean, I threw up yesterday. The nurse is trying to be nice and is like rubbing her back and telling her to slow down. Emily, the girl, is saying, I've never been with anyone. I mean, I'm not like married, so I don't know why. The doctor's gruffness turns into outright hostility, she says, and he says, you don't know why what? Stop making excuses, young lady. When was your last period? So then she says, Emily suddenly felt very warm. She had read the words burning with shame, but she had never experienced the sensation before. So I can't imagine going into a doctor's office she's only 17, I think, 16 or 17, already being so confused, not understanding what's going on with you, not feeling well. She can already feel her body like changing and everything, and she doesn't understand what's going on. And the doctor just immediately making her feel shame. And so she keeps going. She says, I've never been with a boy. I haven't. I wouldn't. He starts yanking open drawers and cabinets and slamming them shut and tells her to lie back on the table. So he doesn't explain anything he's doing. Doesn't give her a chance to really explain anything. Just immediately starts pulling out all these instruments. Emily watched him toss items onto the counter. Surgical gloves, a tube of something, a head strap with a small mirror on it, which is creepy in and of itself. A metal instrument like a long duck's bill that clattered against the laminate. So every woman has been to an OB/GYN at some point. I've had ones that have explained what they're doing as they do it and what each instrument is for, and I've had ones that have not. And it sucks when they don't tell you what they're doing or why, or give you any kind of warning about anything. So I can't imagine having a doctor who explains nothing, is angry, is making you feel shameful, and is just like being hostile. So she says, below, two strange looking bars swung up into the air. They curved at the ends like large spoons. She was this wasn't happening. She was trapped in a horror movie. So again, they don't explain anything to her. He tells her to move to the edge of the table. He snaps on gloves. He grabs her ankles. And she cries out. He doesn't tell her that he's going to touch her. And he tells her, don't be a baby. He grabs the other ankle and yanks her down to the edge of the table. Tells her to stop fighting. And obviously, I'm assuming that this nurse is probably treated just as badly, so she can't say anything and tell him. she's probably treated just as shittily, so she can't tell him anything as well, probably. He tells her to stop crying. My other patients will hear you. So he doesn't care that she's crying. He doesn't care that he's making her uncomfortable, that he's scaring her, that she has no idea what's going on, that he has explained anything to her. Nothing. He doesn't care. He just tells her to stop crying. Emily turns her head away, staring at the wall as she felt her heels being jammed into the stirrups. Her knees are braced wide open. The thought of his gnarled, angry face glaring down at her broke Emily apart. A sob came out of her mouth. Unclenched, Dr. Schroeder sat on the rolling stool. You'll only make it worse. She didn't know what he was doing, or he was going to do, until it was too late. He shoved the cold metal instrument inside of her. The pain brought another cry to her lips. Her insides felt as if they had been scraped away. Loud clicks opened the metal jaw. Instinctively, she pushed her heels to get away, but they only trapped her deeper into the stirrups. A lamp was rolled over. The heat was unbearable, but not as unbearable as Dr. Schroeder putting his face down there. So again, puts the, I forget what the word is, but, puts the instrument inside her, opens her up, doesn't tell her anything, tells her that she's making it worse. She's crying. He doesn't care. And then it says, tears wept from her eyes. His fat fingers prodded inside of her. She gripped the table with her hands. Her teeth clenched. It says she's like paralyzed with fear, basically. She feels like she's going to pass out, and then it's over. The instrument is wrenched out. Dr. Schroeder stands up. He pushes the lamp away. He takes off his gloves. He spoke to Mrs. Brickle instead of to Emily, the nurse. She's not intact. So first of all, now that you shoved this thing inside of her, she's probably not going to be. He tells her, sit up, hurry, you've wasted enough of my time. Emily struggles to lift her feet out of the stirrups. The metal clatters. Dr. Schroeder grabs both of her ankles in his hands and lifts her heels up in the air. Instead of letting go, he clamps them together. See this, he told Emily. If you'd kept your legs closed, you wouldn't be in this mess. What is there even to say to that? Then Emily scrambles to sit up. The paper gown had ripped as she tried to cover herself. Too late for modesty, Dr. Schroeder says as he starts writing. This is literally making me tear up because it's making me so mad. I can just imagine being a young girl and being so scared and having this bastard of a doctor and just men being this way. So he asks her, when was your last period? She stutters. She says, I was a month and a half ago, but I told you I didn't. And he says, you've clearly had intercourse. From what I saw, you've had it multiple times. First of all, pretty sure you can tell if the hymen is intact or not, but you can't tell how many times she's had sex. Emily's too shocked to respond. Multiple times, she thinks, and she's realizing that, obviously somebody assaulted her without her consent multiple times. He says, you can cut the act. You've given yourself to a boy and you're suffering the consequences. What did you think was going to happen, you foolish girl? He says matter-of-factly, because, girls can never just be taken advantage of. It has to be their fault. She starts to say, I didn't do anything with, and he pays attention. He's finally paying attention, and he says, go on, and she says, I was at a party, and she trails off because she realizes that the only people she's ever at parties with are her friends, her 3 male friends, and one of those 3 boys has to be responsible. He says, right. Dr. Schroeder thought he understood completely. You drank too much or someone slipped you a Mickey. So she drank too much and she had sex while she was drunk. Or they drugged her. So that must make it her fault. Emily remembered Clay placing the tab of acid on her tongue. He hadn't slipped her anything. So, of course, he's making her feel like it's her fault. And she's believing it because she took the acid. I'm getting so worked up about this that I just recorded a whole clip and never pressed play. So she's thinking, I willingly took the drug, so this must be my fault. And the doctor she says, I don't remember what happened. And he says, but you do admit that you had sexual intercourse. And she thinks, well, it's no longer a question. Like, he just told me I'm not intact. So all that Emily can do is nod, which makes him angrier. He says, let me tell you this, young lady. You'd better work on a different lie to tell your father. This part is what got me. I can tell from my exam that you've been sexually active for a very long time. You failed the 2-finger test. There's a looseness that I would only expect to see in a married woman. Disgusting. Fucking disgusting. Emily's hand went to her chest. Had it happened more than once? Had someone been breaking into her room at night while she slept? She tried to say, I didn't. He says, you most certainly did. Think very carefully about what you're planning to do next. Do you have the character to accept the blame for your actions, or are you going to destroy some poor young man's future because you couldn't keep your knees together? So even if this had all been consensual, and they had actually, she had willingly had sex with one of these guys and had ended up getting pregnant, like happens to, millions of teenagers, it's still just her fault and not his. She's the one who needs to accept the blame, not him. She's ruining his life, not the other way around. Who cares if her life is ruined? Or her life, according to them, her life isn't being ruined at all. It's only his life that's being ruined. So she's crying so hard that she can't answer him. And he says, that's what I thought. He tells the nurse to do the blood work to confirm what they already know. He says she's 6 weeks into her first trimester. And he looks at her and says, I will give you exactly 1 hour to tell your father what you've been up to before I call and tell him myself. They live in a small town, so I'm sure he knows the father. Probably goes to the country club with them, plays golf with them, whatever. And she, doesn't know what to say, and he says, you heard me. You have 1 hour. And walks out the door. So he basically assaulted her throughout this exam because he didn't tell her anything he was doing. He didn't ask her before, sticking his instrument inside her, sticking his fingers inside of her. He was rude, he was mean, he made her cry, made her scared, yelled at her, accused her, blamed her, and is now forcing her to tell her parents and saying that if she doesn't, he will. So that just made me so mad. So the nurse, once he leaves, the nurse all of a sudden is all nice and supportive, which is kind of a good thing, but also kind of she didn't stand up for her at all. But again, she has probably been treated just as badly by this doctor. It says, she already felt as if someone had put a knife in her chest. How would she face her father? What would he do to her? She'd been whipped so hard after she'd made a C in geography last year that the belt had left a scar on the back of her thighs. So her father's abusive. He's probably going to beat the shit out of her when she tells him. And now the doctor hasn't given her any choice and blamed everything on her. So the nurse tells her, the exam didn't tell the doctor anything about how many times you've been sexually active. He can only tell that your hymen is broken. That's it. And Emily is shocked, and she says, he said, and the nurse says he's lying. He's trying to shame you. Like, the fact that these doctors could just make shit up to make these women feel even worse, to blame them, to shame them. Like, so the nurse says, but whatever happened, you are not a bad person. You had sex with someone. That's all you did. It might feel like it's the end of the world now, but it's not. You will get through this. Women always do. So Emily is now just worried about what she's going to do, how she's going to tell her father. You know, she's saying, it's going to be the end of the world. He won't let me go to college. He might not let me finish school. What am I going to do? So the nurse tells her, I'm not going to lie to you. We both know this is going to be hard, but I know that you're strong enough to get through it. Emily asks her, what do you think my father's going to do? And apparently he's known around town, you know. And the nurse says, we'll see if the sanctity of Franklin Vaughn's politics hold up against the sanctity of his country club membership. And Emily doesn't understand what she's saying. So she tells her, is it an option to talk to the father? And Emily's like, realizes that she doesn't know who the father is, because one of these three boys obviously raped her. And so the lady starts talking about marriage, and now she's freaking out because she's only 17, you know. And then the lady tells her, you do have options, insinuating abortion, which I'm sure is basically impossible at this time. Sounds familiar. She starts saying, you know, I can't tell my father, he'll kill me. I know that sounds like I'm being hysterical, but he'll kill me. And then the nurse starts telling her that she should tell her mom first and call her mom, and that her mom will protect her. So yeah, that was hard to read. And I'm assuming it's just going to get worse as she tells people. I do know that all of her friends, these men who assaulted her, as soon as they find out she's pregnant, disappear and want nothing to do with her. The town, like, she's like ostracized in the town. Parents tell their kids to stay away from her because, like, pregnancy is contagious. So yeah, that was an interesting chapter. So yeah, I will check back in when I get further in. So it is just astounding to me that, like, this is how people lived. Like, this is how women were treated, are still treated. I had a rough childhood. But nothing like this. Like, so Emily, she, like, goes into shock and, like, disassociates basically, and ends up, like, sitting in the diner where she usually goes, like, 8 hours later, and she has no recollection of getting there. So obviously the doctor has already called her dad. He made good on that promise, you know. And so she goes home finally, and she realizes, like, she just needs to get it over with. She feels this, like, sense of calm, and she's like, you know, there's nothing I can do, it's gonna happen. You know, she can get it over with. And she says she had learned from her mother that sometimes it was best to just curl onto the floor, protect your face with your arms, and take the blows as they came. I know that, like, physical abuse and mental abuse, domestic violence is such a, like, nuanced thing, and you can't, like, blame the woman, and getting out of that kind of situation is very hard, especially back then. But to think that a woman would just tell her daughter, like, oh, just curl up into a ball and take it. That's the best you can do, is just protect your face and take it. Like, I cannot imagine ever just being okay with anybody laying hands on my child, let alone my husband, and just being like, it'll be over with eventually, just take it. Like, I cannot even like, Karin Slaughter books usually are pretty like detailed and vivid and can be pretty gory, and she does not shy away from anything basically. But this is the first book that's had like dealt with like these kind of themes, or the first book that I've read that deal with these kinds of themes, and it is making me so angry. Yeah, this book is getting me so worked up that I keep like incorrectly filming stuff. I just talked for 3 minutes straight, not realizing that the camera was on time lapse, so I didn't really catch anything that I said. It's crazy that this book is set in the 70s, or this part of the book is set in the 70s, yet so much of it is what would happen now, or how things would be handled now, or the way men are still assholes now. The way women were treated back then is still very much the way women are treated now. And just the hypocrisy of people. So Emily gets home, she thinks that, you know, her dad is immediately going to start beating her, but instead it looks like the parents have already like yelled themselves, you know, to death at each other, have taken all their anger out on each other. The mom's telling her like, please just tell me what happened. But Emily doesn't want to say that Clay gave her the acid, not because she's worried about getting in trouble for taking acid, but because she wants to protect him. She wants to protect her, the man who potentially raped her. Which, typical. You know, because it's not his fault, it's her fault, so she needs to protect him. Which is just maddening in and of itself. So the mom keeps saying, like, tell me who did this to you, we'll take care of it, we'll get it figured out, which back then meant you're getting married and you don't have a choice. And Emily realizes this, and so she realizes that she doesn't love any of these boys, any of the 3 of them, and she doesn't want to marry any of the 3 of them. She's only 17, she doesn't want to get married, period. So she won't name any of them. 1, because she's protecting them and doesn't want them to get in trouble. 2, because she doesn't want to marry any of them. So the dad, who is a well-known politician, I think, and is known for his political views and his religious views, says, Jesus Christ, Esther, we talked about this. Just take her somewhere and get rid of it. Why does this sound familiar? So we'll condemn anyone who is for abortion to the public, but then behind closed doors, that's our first option. She says, we did talk about this. Taking Emily out of the discussion. So she has no choice in the matter. If they decide she's going to get an abortion, she's going to get an abortion. If they decide she's not, she's not. She has no decision, or no say in the decision. She says, someone will find out, Franklin. Someone always finds out. So let's not take care of our daughter. Let's not make sure she's okay. Let's not find out who hurt her. Let's make sure nobody finds out. He says, hire someone, use cash. And then she goes on to say that, you know, eventually someone will find out. They'll, you know, who's she going to hire. She's worried about her reputation as a judge, his reputation as a politician. So to the public, abortion is murder, wrong, morally wrong, immoral, whatever. All the usual bullshit. But then the hypocrisy of turning around, and that's your first option. So, again, very similar to today. So then he goes on to ask about adoption. So the dad asks about adoption. She says the mom does say that, you know, the child welfare system is terrible, which, again, same as today. Not to mention that Reagan will permanently strike me from the list if there's even a whiff of this kind of scandal. As if his own daughter wasn't scandalously premature. So everybody's corrupt, everybody's a hypocrite, like, and this poor girl is just stuck in the middle. Like, again, I miss this timer because I keep coming up on things that are just making me so mad. So, I don't know how much longer this chapter has. I'm going to finish this chapter and then take a break because this is Like, not really what I wanted to start my morning with. I just cannot with these parents. Like, so dad finally leaves, and the mom is devastated and tells her, I don't understand how you could let this happen. I wanted so much for you. I didn't want you to struggle the way I did. And Emily says, I know, Mom, I'm sorry. She says, no one will ever respect you now. Do you understand that? What you've done is you have wiped away your intelligence, your hard work, your drive, and determination. Everything you've done that's good until this moment is gone. So because she's pregnant, even if she had consensual sex, because she got pregnant, it wipes away everything else that she's ever done, everything else that she is. This kind of thinking just boggles my fucking mind. She says, do you understand what you've done? Everything is gone. And she says, I didn't know. And the mom says, well, you know now. From now on, every time someone looks at you, all they'll see is a filthy whore. Which unfortunately isn't wrong. But the fact that that was the mindset, and still is the mindset, because, you know, we want to take away women's rights and outlaw abortion. But this is still the way we see women. The men have nothing to do with it. It's not their fault. But this is still the way women are thought of. Like, honestly, I have not been this mad at a book in a long time, which I do like. I like when books make me mad, but in the moment, like, I just want to put it down. So I'm going to finish this chapter, like I said. I keep saying that, and then I keep reading the next page, and then coming back. I'm going to finish this chapter, and then move on to something else, because this is just going to ruin my whole day. The way, like, I don't even know what to say. The way that people back then, and even still today, in 2023, just accept that this happens to women, that if you go to a party and get drunk and are raped, it's your fault, and the boys were just being boys, is just maddening to me. I just cannot comprehend. So the mom is telling her, like, you sure you will get married? Like, I'm not gonna let this happen to you. I'm not letting it happen to me, because this has anything to do with her. And she says, you know, Emily says, I don't think they wouldn't do that. The boys, we've been friends since first grade. And the mom says, your father's right about that, at least. They are boys, Emily. What happened to you is exactly what boys do to girls who black out from drinking. That's it. Not that it's wrong. Not that they shouldn't. Not that they're the ones to blame. Not that they should go to fucking jail. Nothing. Just that's what boys do to girls who drink and black out. Logical. You're not able to stop them, so why shouldn't they? The last time I was this mad about a book was Beartown by Fredrick Backman, and this is making me just as mad. Like, it's literally been 2 seconds since the last clip, but so right after she has that thought that her mom has taught her to just take it and curl up in a ball, whatever, she says, and the fact was, she deserved it. It's like I said earlier, it's one thing if she had sex consensually. Even then, she wouldn't deserve to be beat by her father, but the fact that, like, her having been taken advantage of doesn't matter. Like, and she's already had so much shame and, like, anger and blame sent in her direction that she's just taking it and just accepting that this is her fault. So I'm just now realizing that this is actually the second book in a series. I was putting it into my Goodreads, and I just realized that there's a first book that is about the cop, I think, from the, like, present POV. But I think you can read these like as standalones because that's kind of how the Will Trent books are also. So I'm gonna read this one and then I may eventually pick that one up. Didn't even know that. But yeah, I just finished a chapter. I'm about 150 pages in, and I'm gonna let it go and move on to something else because that one chapter was triggering enough for the day. So I will check back in when I pick this one back up. Hey guys, welcome back. So it's Friday the 24th now. I have been reading Girl Forgotten. I'm still finishing this up. I am that way through. I've read a lot over the last couple of days. I'm on page 282 now. I think I'm gonna be able to finish it tonight. I had been like jumping around between other books I'm reading, but then I got so hooked onto this that like I didn't want to stop reading it, which is typical for Karin Slaughter books for me, which is one of the reasons why I love her. But so I have been marking off different things that like upset me. So I have marked off some pages where things happened that I wanted to make note of. I'm not tabbing this one. I wish I had started tabbing from the beginning, but I hate starting to tab books like in the middle, which is kind of what always ends up happening with like thriller mysteries, because you know how it is, like the beginning is like the setup, and then like towards the end is where all the like revelations and stuff start happening, which is what is happening now. So, but I don't want to start tabbing in the middle of the book, so I just kind of marked them so that I would remember to come back and talk about it. Now I just gotta go back and remember what I marked. So the sad thing is that Emily, this whole time and during her point of views, is so like, I don't want to say indecisive, but she keeps going back and forth between like, I'm the victim, but then like everybody in her life is telling her that it's her fault, and that, you know, she was drunk, she was high, this is what happens when you're around boys, and that it's her fault, basically. So it says, also, she comes to the point where she thinks that it could actually be the teacher, this creepy ass PE teacher who raped her, which I think is true based on things that happened in the earlier part of the book. I think he's not the father of the baby, but I do think that he did rape her. So she says, she's been so certain, even while she told herself that she was uncertain, that it had been one of the boys. And now she was not allowing herself to believe that Dean Wexler, with his bushy, sweaty mustache and clumsy, fumbling hands, had taken from her something that she was not willing to give. Because that was rape, wasn't it? Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe her mother was right, and her father. If you drank too much, if you took drugs, you're accepting the inherent risk that a boy would do what boys do. Like, is that just not like the reality of every woman? Like, if you let your guard down, if you put yourself in that situation, then it's your own fault. And boys are just going to be boys. You know, but then she says, but Mr. Wexler was a man. Not that it matters, but it makes, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But the fact that he is a teacher, an older man, just makes it worse. So it turns out that this teacher now, like 20 years later, in the current timeline, lives on a farm and is the, like, Charles Manson of a cult, basically, and is abusing these young girls, of course. Let's see, what else did I mark off here? So, and of course, like, every person in this story, in this town, is, like, rallying around, like, together to make her the one at fault. Because, of course, again, she drank, she took the acid, so it must be her fault. It's not anybody else's fault. It's not the fault of the person who raped her. It's her fault. So all the men are just like, like I said, just saying it's her fault. At one point she's talking to this Dean Wexler guy in the current timeline when he's like 60-year-old man. And he says, the bitch got stoned at a party and woke up pregnant. For all I know, every guy there got a piece of her. He smiled at Andrea's appalled reaction. Imagine saying something like that and then smiling. Like, Emily was a party girl. She knew exactly what would happen. Hell, she probably wanted it. How many times have we heard that? Her parents turned her into a fucking angel when she died. Nobody ever talks about how Emily Vaughn would fuck anything that moved. So, and then the cop who's listening to this, and imagine saying this to a cop, or to a U.S. Marshal. And she's thinking, you know, what he's describing as rape, whether Emily was stoned was immaterial if she hadn't been capable of giving consent. But of course, all these men are going to rally together to make her the bad one and make it her fault. And that she's ruining one of these young men's lives, regardless of the fact that, you know, her life is now ruined as well. So then, so there's these different accounts where the cop in the present timeline, so it's all just kind of starting to come full circle and like pieces are starting to connect. And I have like, I forget how long this is. 390 pages. So about 100 pages left. So I'm like really excited to find out how this is going to all connect and what's going to happen. So I'll let you know when I have. So it is about 2:19 now. I did some reading on my lunch, as you saw, reading Girl Forgotten, and I am 320 pages in, so I have like 60 something pages left. Something just happened that I was not expecting. The thing about Karin Slaughter books is there's always some kind of twist at the end, like for her standalone books, especially. Well, I guess this is technically a series, but for the books that I have read of hers, there's always some big twist at the end that you did not see coming. So this one, I didn't see coming at all. I don't know how much it's going to play into like the end reveal, the end result, but I definitely didn't see it coming. I marked some other little passages here. Okay, so there's a part where Emily in the previous timeline goes off on her mom, telling her that she's a coward and that she's lived her whole life letting everyone trample her, worrying about like this all encompassing or this like all knowing they, as in like society, like they can't do anything in their lives because they will find out about it. You know, she couldn't have an abortion because they would find out. She couldn't put the baby up for adoption because they would find out. They as in the family, had to handle her pregnancy in a certain way because they, as in the rest of society or whatever, would find out. And so she calls her mom a coward and a hypocrite and says that she tries to stand up for women, but really all she's doing is like setting them back even more, basically. And so it's a great scene. Like finally Emily like has stood up for herself, and she said like, she even said like, you're not standing up for me. The principal's kicking me out of school and you're letting him. You know, I was raped and you don't even care. You're not doing anything to find out like what happened. So that was great. Like she like vindicated herself pretty well. Then it is now several days later. I'm not sure when the last time I updated this was, but I have finished Brutal Prince and Girl Forgotten, two of the books that I am reading for this vlog. I still have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I'm about 60% of the way in through that. I'm really liking it. The audiobook is really good. The narrator just does the voices really well, and just really lends itself to like the listening experience for that book. I can't say that I'm liking this as much as I did like the original series, but it is nice to see kind of how things were left off after the end of the last book, and you know, just see what Oak has been up to and everything. They have just gotten past the Unseelie court and have now gone to a witch, I think. I forget who it is exactly. They've met with a witch because Oak is trying to find his dad and get his dad back. And yeah, like I said, I'm about 60% of the way through, so I'm excited to finish that. And then the next book that I have, or the last book that I have, that I had on this list, is Anxious People by Fredrick Backman. I have no idea what this is about. I know that Beartown by Fredrick Backman is one of the few books that just... The last book I read by Fredrick Backman was Beartown, and that book just put me through the ringer. That book made me feel every, like, emotion that I possibly could. It just took me through it completely. It made me so mad. I had to put it down and walk away from it several times. It made me cry. My plan is to eventually read the next two books in this series, but I have had this one sitting on my shelves for a while now. This came out in 2020, so 3 years ago. It came out in September of 2020, so almost 3 years ago. And yeah, like I said, I don't really know what it's about, but I know that I really enjoy Fredrick Backman's writing, so I'm excited to get into it. I'm going to be starting this tonight, and I will let you guys know how it goes. Hey guys, so it is Tuesday, March 7th now. I am going to be starting the last book in this reading vlog, so this is going to be Anxious People by Fredrick Backman. I did already start this last night. I'm not very far in. I'm only 46 pages in. One thing I like about this is that the chapters are super short, like a page or two, and I prefer that because it kind of tricks me into feeling like I'm reading the book faster than I actually am. And I always find that when chapters are smaller like that, I'm able to get through the book quicker. I just kind of trick myself into reading it faster or reading it for a longer amount of time. So I like that it, like I said, that the chapters are shorter. It is not what I was expecting. I didn't really know what it was about, but compared to Beartown, this is completely different. I haven't read any other books by Fredrick Backman, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But this, like I said, is totally different than what I was expecting. This is mainly about a robbery, or an attempted robbery, in a bank that happens to be a cashless bank, which I didn't know that existed. But this is set in Scandinavia, I think. So it's set somewhere like in Europe. So maybe, apparently that's the thing over there. But yeah, there's an attempted robbery. When the cops are called, the robber runs away, and through a series of like accidents, finds himself in an apartment that is being shown by a realtor, like an open house kind of type of thing. And he ends up taking the people in the apartment hostage, and eventually the robber gives up, and the hostages are escorted out of the apartment. When the police go back to the apartment, the robber's gone, and they can't find him. So they're like interviewing all of the hostages and the people who were in the apartment, the people who were in the bank. And it's kind of weird because they're saying that when the robber, like the negotiator, contacted the robber eventually gave up. The police came, and I guess it kind of makes sense. So they escorted the hostages out of the apartment first, closed up the apartment, took the hostages downstairs and into waiting cars, and then eventually went upstairs. It seems like there was a lot of time in between the hostages being taken out and them going to the apartment to like actually physically apprehend the robber, and they left the robber alone in the apartment. That doesn't really make sense to me. But then when they finally do get into the apartment, they hear one single gunshot, so they expect to find a body. They do find a bunch of blood in the apartment, but no body. They don't know where the robber is. So they suspect that maybe one of the hostages helped him, or maybe there's like a hiding spot somewhere in the apartment. And then we're getting the perspective of one of the cops who has some past trauma, like that he's dealing with, that is kind of like affecting him now as a cop. And then his partner's actually his dad, which I don't know that would be a thing here. I feel like that might be kind of like a conflict or something, but his partner is his dad, and his dad is obviously like old school kind of cop, has a certain way of doing things, obviously older generation, all that. And he is dealing like with his own stuff and his own trauma, and that's kind of coloring how he's handling things. And he's trying to have a good relationship with his son, which is affecting the way he's handling things. So it's all kind of convoluted, and there's a lot of different things going on. So like I said, not at all what I was expecting, but so far it's good. I mean, Beartown was like obviously completely different, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going. I'm trying to read like 50 pages a day to finish this and give myself enough time to edit before this vlog needs to go up. So I'm gonna read the next 50 pages, and I will check in with you guys after. So going into chapter 19, page 50, and it's going back and forth between like during the heist or the bank robbery and after. And during the bank robbery, the father and son, Jack and Jim, were the first two officers to arrive on the scene, and neither of them knows what to do in the case of a hostage situation. They have no experience, either of them. The dad has been a cop for like 50 years or something and has no experience in hostage negotiation or any idea how to handle a hostage situation, and is literally Googling it. Seems about right. Seems like something that might happen here also. Yeah, I had to take it that. So the son is asking him, like, what does Google say? What do we do? Crazy. Okay, guys, here's the deal. It's a little while later. I'm now 100 pages in to Anxious People, and I'm throwing in the towel. I am going to be DNFing this. I just can't do it. If this was just a straightforward mystery, bank robbery, heist type thing, I could do it. That's my jam. But this is like, it's supposed to be funny. Like, a lot of people say that it's funny, that there's a lot of humor in it. But it's too, like, I don't even know. It just goes off on these weird, like, tangents. It'll be talking about one thing, and then all of a sudden it diverges into something else. And all of a sudden it's talking about, like, I don't know. I don't even know. It's weird. I don't even know how to explain it. But it keeps going off on these tangents instead of just sticking straight to the story about these cops and about this robbery. It keeps going off on these weird tangents talking about all this other, like, existential, like, stuff. And I can't. That is just not my kind of thing. The writing is, like, it's not really lyrical or, like, flowery, but I don't know, it's not really just sticking to the point. It just keeps branching off to other things, and it's like throwing me off. Every time it gets into the story about the robbery, it branches off into something else, and it throws me completely off. And I just can't do it. This book has so many good reviews, and people talk about how heartwarming it is, and quirky, and uplifting, and I'm just not getting any of that. It's definitely quirky. Like, Fredrick Backman, the writing has a certain, like, just nuance to it and feel to it, and you can tell it's his writing. But I just can't keep breaking off on to these other tangents about other stuff. There's a whole thing about, like, bank loans and the market crashing and bank crashing, and, like, I get how it relates to, like, a bank robbery, but it's just not for me. I can already tell I'm gonna have a hard time getting through this. So I am going to DNF it. I'm in the middle of way too many books to force myself to read something that I'm not enjoying, that I'm not getting. I I will stick to Beartown. I still want to reread those. And yeah, so I'm done with this one. That it will be completing all 4 books that I wanted to read for this Backlist authors reading vlog. So I'm going to do a separate like wrap up outro type of clip. I'll do that here in a little bit. But I wanted to let you guys know that I'm actually going to be DNFing this one. Okay, so it is Wednesday, March 8th now. I am going to be wrapping up this vlog. So I did end up doing or reading 4 books. The 4 books I originally intended to read. Well, one was a DNF, but so just a quick wrap up. The first book I read, I'll put the cover up here because it was an ebook, is The Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I gave that 3 stars. The second book, which I'll put the cover up here, was The Stolen Heir by Holly Black, a book in the Folk of the Air. It's not really part of the, it's not part of the trilogy. It's like within the same world. I gave that 3 stars. I liked it. To be honest, I probably should have read The Cruel Prince in like the trilogy again because I didn't really remember the events of the last book that well, and it really did reference pretty heavily on things that had happened in the past. So I kind of remembered like what they were talking about, but a lot of the characters that they mentioned I didn't fully remember. So this probably wasn't as good as it could have been because I didn't really remember everything that had happened before, because I read the Cruel Prince and the whole series a few years ago. So I'm sure that probably had something to do with it. Kind of affected my enjoyment of it a little bit. But I do really like Oak and Ren. I'm excited to see where things go in the second book now that everything has been kind of set up. I don't want to give any spoilers or anything, but I did really like the second half of the book more than the first half. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was good. I'm excited for the next one. Then I'm gonna save this one for last. Then I have Anxious People by Fredrick Backman. You will just have seen a clip of that. I ended up DNFing this. Just wasn't for me. A little too literary, jumped around all over the place. Every time it would change like perspectives or talk about a different person or go off on these random like tangents, it would just pull me out of the story and I just had no idea what was going on. So didn't love it. I have put this up on Pango Books. There's always a link down below. You can check that out there if you want this. And then the last book, by far the best book that I read in this vlog, Go Forgotten by Karin Slaughter. Karin Slaughter has not disappointed me yet. The whole point of this series was to read like backlist titles from some of my favorite authors, and this did not disappoint. I have not read a Karin Slaughter book yet that I did not like. I still have I think I have one more Karin Slaughter book, like a physical copy of it, so I may be doing another one of these maybe, or I'll do a separate reading vlog for it. But definitely didn't disappoint. This was very good. Not as like gory and violent and like in your face as some of her other books. This is definitely more like social commentary, more talking about things that we are unfortunately still dealing with today in our society. This book made me very angry. I had to walk away from it at certain points. It made me cry. It was shocking. It broke my heart. I really, really liked this one. This is up there as one of the best books that I've read so far this year. So I am very glad to have done this. I found a new favorite from an already favorite author, and not so favorites from an author that I do already like. So although I would say this was a success, I'm excited to do another one of these in the future. Let me know if you've read any of these. Did you like these? What did you think of them? Who are some of your favorite authors? Maybe there's some that I haven't read from yet that I can check out. Let me know down below, and I will see you in